We got a full house here. We got Ron in the house. My man Billy's here. And one of my favorite people, since I've smartened up and started to realize how policing in different ways is important. One of my favorite people, Hannah Longley. Amazing to have you here, actually here in person, which is really cool. Ron and I did an episode not too long ago about crisis intervention teams, wellness, kind of that direction that brought us to really even this podcast, to be honest. And that journey, honestly, we say, oh yeah, this is how it started for us, but it started with Hannah. And it actually started with me being a bit of an a-hole and not crisis, CIT, which was a bad attitude. And I'm glad that I made that shift at some point, but I sent an email out randomly to the wrong person. And then it ended up Hannah responding back, this is what you do. And it's been, honestly, it's been amazing ever since. I mean, just all the learning and progression that I did, I think, as a leader and an officer. This is the Maine Responder Podcast. Real conversations about work, the pressure, and the lives shaped by service. There's no single lane here, no script, just honest talk. Let's get into it.
Yeah, no, it was great. Just that I go back to how we got involved with the CIT process, and then that turned us into Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops, and then you participated in a webinar with us. You brought a whole nother level to the show.
Thanks. I actually still remember you sent the email. I said, let's set up a time, let's talk. It was during COVID, right, when everything was shut down. Right. So we hopped onto Zoom and we started the discussion, and we had a CIT class coming up. And I said, why don't you just go and experience it? And so you said, yeah, I'll go and see whether or not it's good for all my guys. And I can't remember if it was the second or third day you came in and you're like, I went home and I tried some of this at home. And it actually worked.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes.
Well, if anybody knows, right, you're also a spouse, right? You have a police officer as your husband. And so you know how hard-headed and stubborn we can be at times. So
no, my husband, not at all. I do like to point out that I actually married a banker.
True. Yes.
Yeah. So he was not early in our marriage. He was a banker and then transferred over a couple years into marriage. Yeah.
You brought him to the dark side?
I think I did. Although I tease him a lot, and I'm like, I thought I married for money, but apparently it really was love.
I was going to say, he hoodwinked you.
Yes.
I'm a banker, I promise. Psych, I'm a cop.
Yeah.
One of the other things I hope to get into in the time that we're talking here is the peer support team.
Yeah.
The York County peer support team, which you were instrumental in starting that.
Yeah.
And I guess this whole room is part of that on some level.
Yeah.
And Billy, right, you've gotten pretty heavy into it here more recently. Ron, one of the things I want to talk about is, like, I think I said this last time, but I'm like, Ron, do you have to do them all?
Yeah.
Dude, are you okay with this stuff? It can be tough. I know I've only done very few. The ones that I've done is with a tough crowd on the chief level. So I don't always get the same response. Some of them that I've done that some officers have been there have felt different and are a little more fulfilling, and that you get that response sometimes and you see the process working. But there's times where I'm like, bro, you're doing them all. And I just worry, like,
I just had the really cheesy line of long-time listener, first-time caller, pop into my head because I have listened to all the episodes. You guys are amazing, and I feel like a proud mom when I listen to them. But we actually, if some people had stayed for the second day of the most previous training that I did, we did talk a lot. Sorry, I'm shaming. I feel like I shouldn't shame you guys on the podcast.
We were getting an award.
Yeah,
for
Elliot
our
was
boss.
getting. Elliot was getting his awards.
We're gonna edit that out.
Totally a great
Pressing moment.
Great reason. But we talked a lot about the big push now is recognizing the toll that it does take to be there, to be present. And again, I always go back to the statistics where we, in our personal lives, the average person experiences 2 to 3 critical incidents or traumatic incidents throughout the course of their lifespan. We know for law enforcement officers, and the numbers are creeping up depending on where you're looking for the statistics, but it's between 170 and 200 critical incidents throughout the course of a 20 to 25-year career, depending on where you work and all of that. And then you add on to it, when you do peer support, you're taking on, in a secondary capacity, other people's critical incidents also. So it is a lot. And so the big push and what we talked a lot about is how do we help the helpers? How do we make sure that everyone's taken care of?
Yeah.
And I think knowing that's one of the things, if I may, when I knew Hannah was coming on with us, one of the topics that I was hoping that we would be able to cover is exactly that, the peer support team and what is done for those that are doing it. I have some guilt because I'm not able to respond to those debriefs as often as I'd like. At that meeting, you asked how many people have done so many numbers, and I didn't raise my hand, and Hannah's waiting. I'm like, okay, how many people have done one? And I've raised my hand, and she's like, what? And yeah, I've got some guilt in that, but it's what we can do with our time, and how else can we provide support. So that's one thing that I wanted to cover and talk about is the support for our team, for those that are the caregivers, for the caregivers. What advice and tracks that we can go down to help them.
And I think one of the best things that we can do for just people that don't know what peer support does, do you want to explain what the team does and what the functions of the team approach is?
Yeah, so we use, and what we adopted in your team and what some of the teams across the state are doing, and we're moving in that direction, is we adopted the ICISF model, so the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation model, which is a multi-pronged approach. There are adaptions and there are different models out there, and so I always want to put that out there that I am not someone who says, it has to be this way, it has to be only this way, because we're all so unique and different that different models and different styles are going to work for different folks. And so I know that the team has really done a wonderful job incorporating all of that into it. But the peer support model really looks at how do we support individuals from people who know what they're going through. It's not necessarily the been there, done that, have the t-shirt, but it is to a certain extent. There is a familiarity with the situations that people face, and there's a familiarity with the culture, but it's a way to normalize the acutely abnormal situations that you guys face on a regular basis. The acute responsibility and all. And again, it's a way to divert. I am a therapist. I'm a licensed therapist. I do therapy also. I think therapy is good, but not everyone needs therapy. And so it is a lower, I don't want to say a lower level, because in some cases it's far more impactful than anything I can do from a clinician standpoint of just normalizing our common stress reactions and responses, how hard it is, the impact of the job, both when you're at work, but then also when you're at home, and just provide a level of support that is so incredibly impactful and powerful. And so the team offers it on an individual basis, and then also in a group basis.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success over the years with the groups, because typically this isn't just one person going through a shitty situation. It's a team of people. And for me, it's rewarding because, number one, I have an administrator that allows me to go out and share in their healing. And it's something that we take pride in because we feel that we're able to teach people to deal with those stressors and give them ideas and what to do, what not to do type of thing after a critical incident.
I always kind of compare it to rec marches. I think you were talking, again, I feel like a little bit of a fangirl right now because I really do listen to all of your episodes. But in rec marches, particularly in group rec marches, if your load gets too heavy for a period of time and you're starting to struggle, you can hand things off to those who are next to you to help to carry it for a period of time. They can pass you water. They can give you words of encouragement. And that is what we know helps to get people through a really hard time. And again, a ruck march is hard. It's a lot to carry. And so it's not that anyone's taking your load and carrying it for the entire 15 miles if that's what you're doing, but they can carry it for a period of time and lighten your load for a little bit, give you some words of encouragement, give you things that can help to, rehydrate you. They can give you better socks. There's a lot of things, small things that we can do to support you to get through that moment of struggle and get you to the finish line.
I don't know why, but like I sometimes struggle with it. I did one that just sticks in my head. It was a big one in Maine. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this again. I was like, damn, it was a banger. And I don't mean that in a good way. At first it was kind of slow. And then when people opened up, I was like, whew. That drive home for me was heavy. And I was like, should I be doing this? It was a lot of weight to it. When you process it and everything, you're like, that was good. And it was good. And when you take that moment to kind of, okay, this is what happened, like in my own, when I have that conversation with myself, I guess, I was like, that was good. There was a lot of good that came out of there. There was a lot of, I'll say, conversation that was super powerful so I could see the value. My issue was the first time I ever went to a peer support. And I don't know, Ron, were you there for that?
The one that we did for admin?
This was way back. I don't even know if,
I don't think you've ever sat in as a participant and not as a...
Yeah, this is one that I sat in as a participant.
Yes,
right.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We had a bad boating crash in our community.
Yeah, and I didn't want to go. I didn't feel like I needed to, but one of our people did, and I wanted to be supportive. And I wanted to sit outside the circle. And it became a thing. And
he almost threw punches.
It wasn't that bad, but I was like, no, I want to, like in my mind, I wanted to just kind of be an observer and just be there. And the person who was running it was a jerk, just straight up.
Right.
Yeah. I don't even know that person's name.
Yeah.
But it was basically like, all right, well, if you're not going to sit in the circle, we're going to move our chairs around you. Not like I was in the center of the circle, but we're going to make the circle work. And I was so mad. And maybe I was childish, like whatever. Now thinking about it, all right, I was being a child about it. I didn't want to be there. But one of the things that I think is that avoids that now is it's kind of broken up right by rank.
Yeah, admin not allowed in the room, basically, unless you were actually on the scene participating in the active act.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we've decided as a team, it depends on the agency. We've had a couple of agencies that, their administration is part of the team. There is no, just like heaven forbid we ever have to go through this, Elliot's going to be there no matter what, because he's part of our team and we all heal and, go through things together and try and support one another. But there are some places, some agencies that, admin just cannot be in that room. And for us, I think it's beneficial because we have so many different team members. They kind of will give the team leader a heads up of like, hey, this one's okay.
And we try to have a lot of conversations and that's where I'm like, I don't care what model you use, but if you're going to do it, make sure it's research-based, it's evidence-based. It's not just something that we wing. Like it's something that's really important because when one goes bad, it can cause a significant amount of damage for the individuals who participated in it. So use the model. We do a very thorough assessment. We call it the recon. And so that is a critical part of the model that we use and that needs to be implemented. We try and provide as much information and proactive control of the environment as possible. And you're right. You guys have you guys have an anomaly of a department, I will say, in a good way. But you do have that closeness and that connection, and not every department is that way. There's not always the same level of trust. But I know you are part of also the Maine Chiefs team, where we have, when Chip was the president, he really pushed forward for that, because we had a huge amount of research that came out that the higher you go in rank, the more at risk you are for suicidality, which, that's a big thing that we want to proactively address. But also just, it's different when you go higher in rank, and it's more isolating in the fact that ultimately the buck stops with you. Mm-hmm. And so you have to make different decisions. You have different worries. You have different concerns. And so making sure that we're addressing that. And so collectively as a group, we try to, again, be proactive and mindful, so that, like, for me in my head, when I'm thinking about that, I would have already had the room set up before you came in. Mm-hmm. So it would have been clear where I expected you to sit. Yeah. Whether or not you'd follow it. But I mean, it makes it there's some pretty good social cues at that point of what to do. But then also having the conversations, and the whole power of the group peer debrief is that you guys heal each other. You provide aspects of the situation and details that help to fill in the blanks, because by nature, either partially we're humans, but also partially by what we've all been exposed to over the years, we fill in the blanks, and we never fill in the blanks with the least concerning of the situations. We always go to the worst case scenarios. Mm-hmm. And so bringing all those folks in. And so I'm just thinking about, like, proactively, how could we have provided a better environment? I say the royal we, but because oftentimes it's clinicians that lead them. We're big on making sure it's peers that lead the debriefs, but how could we have proactively addressed that in that moment?
Yeah. And so one of the things for that one that I went through also, which is why I think I brought up the rank structure, is that was a huge circle. There was a lot of people there. So for me, I think I was like, who are these people? Yeah. And I think I kind of, clammed up as a result. And it just didn't, that was my first one. And I was like, I will never do this again.
Well, I'll wrap myself out. I always say 97% of the time I'm an absolute delight and I'm wonderful. 3% of the time I got a little bit of an edge to me. And it only pertains to specific situations and circumstances, largely involving my kids and my husband, but also involving making sure we're doing the best we can when we are supporting someone, because again, we can do some significant damage. And there was an administrative one, and I think Ron and Elliot, I think you guys were facilitating it, and I was present as the mental health clinician. Right. And someone stated that they belonged in a debrief and entered it midway through, put themselves into it. I got snappy and I was like, nope. And I was a lot more assertive than maybe I typically am in certain situations. But you could see just the whole group shut down, because if it's not the right people in there, then it's not helpful.
Yeah, I guess if I had from the experience I have, the ones I've been through in the York County team, far different. I think I would have sat there, accepted it, and probably supported it after that. It was just what do we call it? A good old classic shit show. The first one that I went to. And then that was the taste in my mouth that was left, So it took me a long time it probably impacted my CIT, all that stuff that I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, may have been based off of that moment. And I don't know, it was impactful enough that I bring it up a lot. Every time we have these conversations, I'm like, yeah, that time.
And so, well, at least you have the ability to see the good and the bad.
True.
And
Very
do the comparisons. Yeah. I do feel like we kind of graced over the helping the helpers.
Yeah,
and that popped into my head. And I was like, poor Billy. I view that, in all honesty, like I was kind of surprised when you said you've only done one, because I view you as the primary point of contact for helping the helpers. In what you're able to teach, what you're able to coach, what you're able to provide for support for them. And I think that that's an important part of peer support too.
Wow. Yeah.
Sorry, I just made it awkward.
You gonna cry?
Yeah.
I mean, I could cry.
Let it go.
Well,
Let it
Go,
go.
let it out. And I think that's joining the peer support team. That kind of was like what I had envisioned. I'm like, you know what? I've got a lot of skills in my toolbox for what I do for myself and my small little group. I could increase my impact by joining this team, whether it's just the team or those that the team service. So it kind of, yeah, I want to keep kind of moving in that direction and trying to be a part of the team and hold that space for them. And it's just a matter of trying to get that component laid in, because I think we're all still very much, I got this. It's my ruck. I'm going to keep filling it up. And I got it, even as our team. I mean, you can look around the room when we're in those classes and meetings. They're all very strong people. They're all very strong officers. They're all very strong individuals. And we give that advice to open up, share, and work with each other. But a lot of times we just say, nope, I got it. And that includes to the point of those that are able to, yep, I'm available. There's quite a few that are constantly there. Like I said, I have that guilt of I'm just not available.
Hannah, the only reason why we have this team is because of you. And I hope you understand that and know that Southern Maine law enforcement is much better equipped to deal with the shit shows because of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That might make me cry now.
And just the processes that you taught us, we're able to go help try and heal some people that are struggling, give them tools to, get by. So next time they can also share it with, their teammates or whatnot. But then we're really good about, as a team, checking in on each other.
Correct.
We normally will stay 20 minutes after a debrief and just, kind of circle up and you good? What do you need? Or if sometimes we are up in northern Maine, we'll take that time on the drive back to, check in with our supports. And, I know a lot of times, don't share what happened, but a lot of times I share with, Elliot's my guy. He allows me to go to these and be part of it. And I reach out and I'm like, oh, that one was heavy. And this is how I'm feeling. And, it's great because, we're able to talk it through. Sometimes, if it's something really bad that I'm struggling with, I'm calling you and saying, hey, can you help? So thank you.
And I love the way you all communicate. I actually asked to get removed from the group chat once. My big thing is that nothing can ever exist solely on one person. It's not sustainable that way. It has to be a culture shift. It has to be a buy-in. And it has to be a team. And so once you guys were all self-sufficient, like the mama bird, I was like, fly out of the nest. And they would not remove me from the group chat. And I do. I love, again, the mom in me loves to see how much you guys support each other and cheer each other on and celebrate every milestone that everyone has. And I feel like that's something, I do call you guys out as a community. Sometimes you circle in on each other and you don't humanize yourselves enough. But just how amazing and like human beings you all are, and just the love and the empathy and the support. But you guys celebrate every babies, promotions, birthdays, all of that sort of stuff. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful community you guys have created.
You're a proud mama.
I am. I am.
It's amazing, truly. Do you know the impact? It's probably huge, the impact that you've had. It's pretty cool stuff, and Billy, to go back to your thing, I mean, I get it. I always I always go back and say, I wish I had done more in the military, or I wish I had stayed. Like I have a piece of what I think is unfinished business, in the military. I loved it. That's where I think I found camaraderie. I always tried to compare the camaraderie there. So you're still in it. You still got time. You're doing the work. You do a lot at the PD. So just hang on there. I think it'll happen.
Right.
Or sometimes the one-on-ones. That got me. This is what would work for me. I just need a call from somebody. I need to process this. I would like to just start with a conversation. And then, I do a lot of reflecting enough, and I'm an overthinker, and I get stuck in my head sometimes, but that one-on-one, I think, is just so powerful.
Yeah, impactful.
I agree.
Just to be able to check in on somebody and just have a quick conversation. It's going to sound corny, but it makes you feel loved.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you're like, I don't know that person, and I know they're calling me because somebody thought enough to say, hey, reach out to this guy.
Right.
Check in on him.
Yep.
And if people don't see that, that's interesting. So I guess I want to go into a little bit like, what do you see, Hannah, especially for you, since you started this? Has there been a culture shift? Maybe that wall was up more. Is this more accepted since the inception of the team? Are people reaching out? Does it feel authentic? Does it feel like a checkbox thing? Does that even matter?
I think there are some departments where the officers say, this is just a checkbox. And I'm like, listen, if they just wanted a checkbox, they wouldn't pick me to come. And they're like, that's true, because you're going to tell them whatever it is that needs telling. Yeah. Which I joke, I'm probably one of the most divisive characters in law enforcement in the state of Maine, for good reasons. But I think some people were slowly moving away from them feeling like their departments are just doing a checkbox. And again, that's when you do it correctly and authentically. But that takes time. It takes trust. It takes building that rapport and just the culture shift in it. There are still pockets of folks who have the old school, suck it up, it's fine, you'll get through it. But I think we're seeing the shift away from that in the fact that we had, I think that we had one big department in York County. And at first it was a battle to get us in there. And to, when the team was first getting off and running, it was a battle. And then within a year, literally anything that happened, they were like, okay, we're ready for our debrief now. And they would just reach out, we're ready for our debrief now. And some of the times we were like, oh, okay. But you're right. And I think that it has shifted, and I think that I'm going to call you, Chip Ramsey in Cumberland, and Mark Leonard up in VZ. I call him he's the emperor of Penobscot County, for anyone who's not aware of that. But the three of you, I think, has expanded, but you're my three, like, solid foundations.
The three kings?
Yes, yes. So he's not the emperor anymore. He's part of the three kings. So the three of you have done a great job I don't even really nudge you guys anymore, but when I was saying, did you hear about what happened? And, I'm trying to think of, just some community. Yeah. Do you hear what happened? And sometimes you guys would, and sometimes you wouldn't. I'd use you geographically because you're scattered throughout the state. I say, hey, do you know so-and-so? Can you just reach out to them and just check in on them? That's a lot for them to carry as a leader. And you guys just slowly reaching out and being willing to do that. I think that has started to break down a lot of walls because it's made it okay. You guys from the top acknowledging this is hard. Yeah. You guys see things. We've already outed my husband as a police officer, but my husband had something that happened. He goes, normal people aren't supposed to see that. Yeah. But acknowledging, like, you're not necessarily normal just because of what you've been exposed to, but acknowledging that those aren't common things that most people experience on a monthly basis or, and I think you guys have done a beautiful job kind of pushing that forward, normalizing it, making it okay for leaders to start to just get that support and at least be like, I'm not alone in this.
And you just said it, leaders. So our leadership, all those three kings that you just mentioned, all have accepted, hey, I don't know everything. And that's tough for an administrator. A lot of times they've been in the business for 30 or 40 years and, they just think they know it all. They've seen it all. They have every answer or, and I think now part of the culture shift has been is that our younger officers coming into the profession, they demand this type of treatment. They demand the respect, and it's great to see. And for me, I think, I'm going to say probably the past 5 years that culture shift has done a 180 from the suck it up buttercup conversations to us taking care of one another. And I believe that it's only going to get better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say, when we know more, we do more. And we have, in the last, I'd say, decade, had a huge explosion of research and just acknowledgement, understanding of what happens to the brain and the body and the impacts of all of that. And again, when we know better, we do better. And I think that we are starting to see that. I will say, I started working with first responders. I joke before it was cool. I just have been doing it for so long at this point. And, 15, 16 years ago, my phone number, even 10 years ago, my phone number would quietly get passed around. Like, oh, you're having a hard time? Here, call this lady. Call her, talk to her. She's going to have some good ideas and she'll get you where you need to go. Because the stigma was so big. I won't say what department it was, but I did have one department where they weren't necessarily to the point where everyone else is. And I feel so bad for the last kid who called. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
I'm going to out myself that. So in this one department, I had 5 or 6 of them call me within a week, less than a week, in a very short period of time, because they were just quietly passing it around. And the last kid who calls me, if you're under 30, you're a kid, sorry. But this last kid who calls me goes, I know that we're a profession that doesn't like to ask for help and doesn't like to show weakness. And I said, all you motherfuckers do. You just don't tell each other that. And so it becomes this big secret, but it's not. And he's like, well, I did get your number from a couple other people. And I said, why do you think they had my number? And so again, it's just been this slowly coming out of the darkness and people just acknowledging it. Mm-hmm. It's hard. This is where, again, I challenge you guys. You don't always humanize yourself outside.
And again, speaks volumes to who you are, because you've got to trust. That's the big thing, it is being able to trust that I've got these numbers. Am I going to dial this phone number, and who am I going to get on that other side? You've been, at least for me, somebody that I know I can trust 100%. So that's key. And you're right. It's gotten a lot cooler now. Everybody's wants to work with, first responders now. In a sense, I'm like, wow, we're that broken that, now there's this wave of new, social workers coming in and,
It's weird. They try and tell me and give me training. And I'm like, I'm going to listen politely, but some of them I want to be like, I was doing this when you were still in high school, my friend. But okay. Because I didn't realize how cool it got to do all of this. And I'm like, what? I need a special certificate. No, I'm not getting a special certification.
So with that said, can you go into just kind of what you're up to now? So
I think I have, since January, I started my own LLC. It's called Dohas Wellness. Dohas, I'm going to spell it out because most people can't pronounce it. It's Dochas. I come from a very Irish Catholic family. It's the Irish word for hope and optimism about the future. Cool. So I intentionally chose my name. So it was warm and fuzzy, but none of the first responders would know it was warm and fuzzy. Since I started it, I get to do everything I'm super passionate about. Mm-hmm. And so that has included ongoing work legislatively. We did just get LD 882 passed here in the state of Maine, which expands confidentiality for peer support group and individual, but particularly for group, so that it the confidentiality is protected within group interventions, that everyone is protected in there and can't be compelled to testify against anyone else. So I've been able to continue to do that. I have federal stuff that I keep. Poor FOP, I poke at them all the time, and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to see. I do trainings. I still continue to do trainings. I'm still a member of the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation and an approved instructor through them. And then I get to do a whole bunch of clinical work. So I have some individual clients that I see. I'm still doing critical incident responses. I have some departments that are contracting with me for wellness visits or trainings or just going on a ride along. Again, it doesn't have to be formal therapy. Like, I started my career back where I was doing crisis work. And so I just hop in a cruiser because we were going to mental health calls. And in doing that, it became beneficial for the officers. So I can do that. I do a lot of suicide prevention work with different populations in raising awareness, putting systems in place and structures in place. I got a lot going on, but what's amazing is everything that I'm so passionate about, I get to focus in on now.
Mm-hmm. Does it feel like work?
Some days,
Some days, yeah.
No. No, it yes and no. I mean, it feels like I'm passion driven, which is so nice. My grandpa always said, you have to go to work every day as an adult, so make sure you pick something you really love. Yeah. Well, I get to pick everything I really love now. Yeah. So, and I can say no to things. And I'm like, I'm not that passionate about it.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. So the confidentiality thing, that piece on the with peer support, right?
Yeah.
That kind of became a big thing recently. What was it? Maybe a year plus.
Couple years ago.
Yeah.
So what you mentioned that in the work that you're doing. What is that exactly? Can you kind of explain?
So one, in the state of Maine, we had already established the legal protection for under state statute for confidentiality within group and individual. It initially was peer, one-on-one individual peer support, and then it expanded out to the group support. It never specifically stated that it protected everyone who was in there from being compelled to testify. And unfortunately, there was a case in Portland, Oregon, and Boston.
Yeah.
And then I feel like there was one in Washington State also, but I feel like there were 3 big lawsuits that ended up being filed. Boston was the one that grabbed all of our attentions because it was the closest to it. When I was reading through the case, I was like, oh, well, they didn't do the appropriate recon and the appropriate team selection and group selection. They didn't have a clinician in the room. So there was a lot of things where I could look at from an evidence-based, like when we implemented a model with evidence-based fidelity, then, we want to make sure that we're doing it correctly. And so with that, they also had a different state statute that they were protected from confidentiality because they went out on child protective calls and mental health calls. So that HIPAA protection. Again, we had already established it in the state of Maine that it was protected. It was confidentially protected. But in that situation, what ended up happening is that it wasn't the individuals who were facilitating it. It was, I was sitting next to Billy and I was being asked questions. And I said, well, during the debrief, Billy said, and then Billy was compelled to testify. And so this was a way to address it and say very specifically and intentionally that everyone who is there and present in that debrief has the protection. Yeah.
There was a little bit of an outcry after that.
Yeah.
I think we even heard some people saying we're not sending our people.
Yeah.
It was a really strong response. So that's great that there's still attention.
Yeah.
And forward movement on that.
One of the things I thought would be helpful just to, our 2 listeners out there.
I think we've established there's more than 2.
You always say that, our 2 listeners. So I go with it every opportunity I get.
Well, then whenever I hear it, I always say, who's listening other than me?
As a spouse, any advice you can give for the partner that is going through something or struggling, any words of encouragement or things you might be able to recommend to that loved one at home that wants to be there and support when, their first responder is just shutting down and just wants to be left alone and not friggin' talk about anything.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation. So I always want to start it with that. And I want to validate, it is so hard being married to a first responder. And I say that with love. I've been with my husband for almost 22 years now. It's been a long road. We went from the whole bait and switch, like the banker to the cop. We've been through a lot together. And I will say one of the biggest challenges is how fiercely independent you have to be in order to survive, but also how much you have to depend on other people. Particularly, I mean, for me, I was working in crisis and doing this work, but then also I was supervising a large crisis program that's 24 hours, 24/7 and on call and all of that when my husband made the career switch. And so I needed to rely on grandparents to help to transport. I bought them all their own car seats for my kids so that we made sure that we had that covered. And so it's one of those, everyone says you have to be fiercely independent. You have to count on them getting called in. You have to be prepared to spend holidays on your own and just be flexible with how you celebrate it. But you also have to have a good support system and a good team behind you. Because no one really gets it. I remember my husband works for Waterville, Ayla Reynolds. That poor baby went missing right before Christmas. And my husband was just gone leading up to Christmas. And I was complaining to one of my girlfriends and she goes, "Oh, I know. My husband keeps going to all these Christmas parties. And so he's coming home so late at night and it's so annoying. We have so much we have to get done." And I'm like, my husband's out searching for a missing baby. Man. And sleeping at the police station. It's not the same. I thank you for trying to have empathy, but no, your husband doing that is not the same. There's been a number of different situations that have happened, and it goes out on the community scanner page. And people will take screenshots and send it to me and be like, "Is Jason okay? Like, what happened? Like, what's going on? Is Jason, is he hurt?" And I'm like, I have no idea, because when they're in an active critical incident, he can't call me. Like, I don't want him to call me. I want him to focus on what he has to do and staying safe and keeping everyone else safe. But then you get bombarded with all of that. And so it gets really weird. Like, no one really fully understands the stress of sitting home and just wondering. And so be fiercely independent, but also know you have a whole team behind you, and that it's okay to say that it's super hard. I'm not sure what the police, it's been a few years since my husband was at the academy, but when he went through, they were talking about, like, be aware of this for them and that for them, and me being me, I know this is shocking for everyone, but I raised my hand and I said, "Well, what supports are out there for us?" And one of the cadres was like, "I think there's EAP." And I said, "Nope, EAP is going to be available to them. Right. What's available for us?" And they were like, "I don't know." And so we made our own little group. We used to call ourselves the Real Housewives of Waterville. Our kids were older, so we can't get together as much, but we used to try and get together for dinner as much as possible. Whoever's husband wasn't working, you were in charge of all the kids. Good luck to you. But, really rallying around that whole support network. And just finding your people, finding people who get it, finding people who understand. I know that your wife is a huge, I do want to state, I'm going to take a little squirrel moment. Mm-hmm. As you guys have been talking about the cold plunges, no one has openly acknowledged the fact that Becca outlasted some people in the room in her cold plunge. I don't know if that she still has the record, but that has always stuck in my head, that your wife was that tough.
Yeah.
But,
cold plunges for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, she was. But to me, that is the epitome of I joke, everyone, when people want to get under the skin of officers, they threaten their wives. And I'm always like, good luck. You think that we're their Achilles heel, we're their friggin' backbone. So good luck.
Yep.
Truth.
Yep. That is true. And the fiercely independent part. I mean, I see that in my own relationship. I mean, I'm grateful.
Amen.
Yep. In moments of weakness, she has been my strength many times. I hope everybody has that, or can find that at some point.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question.
It did. It
Okay.
did. I'm glad you talked about the wives group because, a lot of times, just from a first responder aspect, a lot of times, we come home after a bad day, we really don't care about what's for dinner. We don't care about picking out a particular wallpaper for, the renovation. And
there is something, they've done research now, like our willpower and our decision-making capabilities and all of that. It's like any other muscle. And so you can get fatigued with it. And that can be really difficult in a marriage because, if you're making difficult decisions all day long, you don't care what you're going to have for dinner. I will be honest, in my relationship, that is usually me. My husband will be like, what are we having for dinner? And I'm like, I don't know. What are you cooking? Something I don't have to cook and I don't have to shop for. But, understanding that when you're making those critical life or death decisions and those split-second decisions, it is hard to care what color the paint is going to be. It's hard to care what you're going to have for dinner. It's hard to, not that it's not important, because it's important to the person that you love and you care about, but you don't have the ability in that moment because it's just, you're worn out, you're tired, your brain is tired. And so that's where a lot of conflict, I always joke that I've had way more cops reach out or their wives reach out because they're fighting about silly things like, what are we going to have for dinner? And what's this? And what's that? And that starts to cause these huge conflicts. And so that's what I just always say is be honest about it and learn to prioritize. There are things that I don't care whether, like if my husband's like, I could care less. My husband has never cared what color we paint our house, what the curtains look like. He does not care about any of that. And that's okay, because that's just not where his importance is. But I need to prioritize when I do need him to have input on it. I need to have some sort of agreement with it. So if I am going to paint, I need you to have an agreement that no matter what I choose, you don't say anything bad about it. But again, that prioritization of I really need your help with this. And I need to communicate as much as they need to communicate, or my husband needs to communicate. He needs to communicate when he's at that limit, and I need to communicate when it is a priority for me, because my priorities aren't going to be the same as his.
Right.
That's one thing that I've learned, just to say, I need a minute. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't come out like sweet, but I think Becca understands, and vice versa. So that has helped, So I don't know where I learned it, and I'm gonna. If I was a betting man, it was from you, Hannah. Exactly. But that's it. It's communication. I know, Billy, you and I have talked about communication. It makes things good. It makes things bad, right? Lack of makes it bad. But those little things, simple little things, if you can just remember, like I need a minute. Yeah. And I think now, after so many years, she can just tell.
Sense it. Yeah, she senses.
Yep.
She senses by the way you put your phone or wallet or key down on the counter of like, he needs a minute. Yep. All
this conversation has been incredible.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be a banger. There's so much more,
right?
To talk about.
Yeah. But when you were talking earlier too about the spouses and I'd love to just get your opinion on why our professions, being a first responder, divorce is so high and things like that. Not today. I just want to wrap up today for me of just, we love you. Thank you so much you've expanded the way we police in our community, and it really shows. So we love you and thank you for that.
I'm going to add off of that as well. I didn't come back to law enforcement until after this introduction. Mm-hmm. You were working with Hannah for a little bit, and I said, I could get into that. That sounds like a great idea of how we're going to approach law enforcement and the public and serving ourselves too. So I say thank you very much, because that brought me back.
Oh, yeah. Because I knew that you were out and then you came back. So,
right. Yep.
Oh.
So it's pretty cool to to get to that level, to this level here, and know the intricacies and how it all started. So appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Yep. You've done a lot of great work, and more work to come, I'm sure. And we're listening, clearly.
Yeah.
So that's important. I just feel like it's going to get, even more impactful as time goes. And I hope someone listens to this and maybe changes their mindset on something. If it's how you police, maybe wellness. I think everything, we didn't say it directly, but it was all covered, I guess, in some sense here. So,
Right.
And I appreciate you. I think I sent you a text recently. You're going through some changes, and I meant it. Like, I was like, you were the one that had so much impact on me that I was done. And not to get on a whole nother rant, but I was like, I'm done with law enforcement. It's just not what I thought it was going to be. And all of a sudden, between an officer talking about CIT, I mean, all these things fell into place, and it like rejuvenated me. There's more. We can do something here. We can be different, which is weird. I wish I didn't have to say different, but we could do this in a different way. And it was at a perfect time, COVID and all that. It was in a time that was demanding that change and that shift. And I'm just grateful that you were there to lead us through it, and grateful that I wasn't so hard headed to not listen.
Close one.
Yeah. That's not often. That doesn't happen often. So thank you so much, Hannah. Any last words from you? Anything you want to say? Can people get a hold of you a certain way? Or
Yeah, absolutely. My webpage is almost up and running. Okay. If you have show notes, we can put my contact information in there for my email and for my phone number. Is there show notes?
There is, yep.
Okay, great. So we can put that in the show notes if anyone has any questions. And what I want to encourage is that it's not an all or nothing thing. And what I tell everyone is, again, 97% of the time I think I'm delightful. 3% of the time I grate on people's nerves, and that is completely fine. I encourage people to reach out just like you did. Just ask the questions. Tell me about this. And it doesn't have to be me. I want to make sure we find people that are the right fit for departments, that are the right fit for their people, for their culture, for their area. There are so many amazing resources that are out there. So just if you have a question, and just say, call me up or send me an email, be like, I heard this.
Yeah.
This is my question, or I don't even know what my question is, but this is where I'm sitting. Because I think that actually might have been yours. Like, I heard about CIT, but I don't even know what, I don't even know.
That sounds like a...
Yeah. And so even if that's just the question, let's figure out what works best and figure out how we can best support. Because the thing that, again, as you guys don't humanize yourselves, if we don't take care of you, can we expect you to take care of anyone else? Because we ask a lot of you. Yeah, putting on your own oxygen mask first. And so just making sure that it's okay. It's okay to reach out and to say, I don't know, but I want to know something.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for doing this. This is going to be, I think, really helpful to a lot of people. And I think on that note, we'll sign off. And as we always say, everybody out there, stay safe.